Hello, I'm the Angry Spork. Back when Superman died fighting Doomsday, four figures emerged to fill the void he had left. One of whom was an egocentric, flirtatious, and kinda self-centered teenage clone of the Man of Steel, who would later have to accept being called Superboy. And as it turns out, there's an alternate Earth where he never left behind his leather jacket phase. So, I'm taking issue with Convergence Superboy, written by Fabian Nicieza, with art by Carl Moline and Jose Marzan Jr. Let's see if this two-parter will make us want to turn the page, or turn our heads. Issue 1's cover has a kind of old-school charm, with a painted art style featuring a dotted background, while Superboy himself is heavily outlined in white. We see him from the back as he turns towards the reader and thumbing to his jacket, indicating that we should not mess with the S, though it looks like he updated his look with chalk, or maybe a white Sharpie. We begin with him in a lab, wearing an unusual suit, though in his usual color scheme, undergoing what looks like an unpleasant procedure.
I don't think this is a standard eye exam!
Observed by Dr. Serling Roquette and the mutate XX, Kon-El is in month 10 of Cadmus' experiments to infuse solar radiation and restore his powers. But like trying to break their dome prison, no such luck. XX thinks that whoever abducted them wants to observe them for some scientific study. But Kon worries that Metropolis will eventually need a hero, and with Superman absent, it'll depend on Superboy. He storms off, but Roquette notes that the latest scan supports their theory. Kon is absorbing the radiation, but for some reason can't access his abilities. Perhaps due to a mental block or genetic firewall. That may be due to the same forces that trapped them in the dome, which creates weather patterns and simulates night and day cycles. And while the likes of Darkseid or Brainiac could accomplish this level of technology, they'd have been gloating about it by now. And if there's anyone that understands gloating about their accomplishments, it's this version of Superboy. Oh, that's not me talking. The comic actually says that. What really seems to sting, though, is that the teenage clone was just beginning to understand his abilities, and the city was beginning to accept him despite his arrogance before they were abducted. Metropolis has since adjusted to their new normal, but Kon has felt without purpose since losing his immense power. An insult from a street vendor and an old couple reminiscing about being saved from Parasite by Superman while visiting his memorial statue all feel like salt on the wound. And from the dialogue, if Kon is being truthful and never meeting Supes, this reality's Metropolis must have lost Big Blue only a short time before being abducted. That's when Telos's big Convergence speech is heard, the dome falls, and to his sheer delight, Superboy is back in town. Has he been wearing that under his clothes the whole year? I hope he at least washed it from time to time, otherwise people are going to be identifying him by the superhero that stinks to high heaven. As Kon jets across the sky, and his insecurities mount, he's observed by a figure in shadow, as he's ordered by another to guide him to Hell's Gate. Don't let the name fool you. It's just a kindly bakery that makes delicious crepes and desserts. Though the only payment they accept is your soul. Kon sees a familiar blur make its way through the city, wondering if Wally West has been in town this whole time, and why he'd put a bowl on his head. Followed by a Cadmus drone, he's led to Hell's Gate Island, which was severed in the doming process and is largely uninhabitable. Though that makes me wonder how long that fire's been going. At first losing his target, he spots someone in a building, only to fall into a trap of kryptonite gas, one set by Red Robin. He smacks Kon around before telling him to yield, but instead the teenager uses a burst of his unique tactile telekinesis to set his foe up for a super punch, which doesn't land when the Flash catches Double R. Double X's scans, both technological and his returning telepathic powers, say his charge is facing an older Dick Grayson and one certainly bona fide Flash, but of an alternate Earth, specifically from the story Kingdom Come, And with their age comes a distrust of younger superheroes.
These whippersnappers and their leather jackets and rock music and unkempt metahuman powers that let them level city blocks and stay off my lawn!
After a gust of super breath, Kon causes a domino effect on 10 buildings to catch the speedster off guard, and it works to incapacitate both his opponents. But as Kon's approach is cut off by heat beams, XX senses another Kryptonian, one from a tumultuous world where he had to fight his own, and in Superboy he sees a realized fear, impatient youth with much power but little sense of responsibility. The newcomer tells Kon he can save 2 versions of Metropolis, but must surrender without a fight, difficult as that decision may be.
But it's one I would make without a second's hesitation. The question is, are you Superman, or just a child pretending to the mantle? Or are you written by Jeff Johns as a malicious middle finger to readers who have character preferences that don't fall in line with his own fanboy leanings?
After the story is a 2-page briefing on this Superboy, mostly covering his origins and some of his time in Hawaii. Issue number 2's cover is starkly different from the first, both in style and intensity. Kingdom Come Superman holding his young counterpart by the neck with one hand, like a war veteran grandpa that's truly had enough.
What did I say about my lawn?
Serling and XX watch Red Robin and the Flash save civilians from various perils, caused by the Battle of the Generation Gap, as seen by Superman smacking Kon with a jumbo jet.
No offense to Superboy, but points to old Kal. That looks awesome.
XX's narration notes how the older Superman wouldn't be acting as he is if the area weren't abandoned. Kon-El, he's a little less sure about. Kal says that being pitted against each other is part of something larger, and they can root it out if they work together, after the teenager admits defeat. Superboy's answer is to blindside Super Gramps with his tactile TK, sandwiching him between, I'm going to say, 2 parts of the same plane. As cool looking and clever as that is, it's not overly effective against the experienced Kryptonian, who states the smarter, more noble choice is to protect his city by choosing not to fight, as a hero would. Superboy only gets madder, able to get a few good hits in on his opponent as he questions the idea of giving up being the best option, and if he's even fighting a real Superman. Old Kal isn't about to validate himself when he has everyone's best interests at heart, and then he's launched miles away by a telekinetic burst. Unfortunately, it was in the heart of the city Kon was trying to protect.
Oh no, I really man-of-steeled it this time.
Flash hits him with a flurry of super-fast punches, and is hit with a TK disruption of the water he's running on. XX ponders if the kid realizes the kind of risk he's posing to the city, as Kon arrives at the fortunately empty stadium, beaten there by Flash. Duh. Roquette runs a Cataclysm scenario, which predicts Metropolis's destruction in under a half hour.
But, on the bright side, if it takes longer than 30 minutes, the devastation is free.
However, the teen isn't just fighting over his ego, but the uncertainty about their unknown captor, while overlooking the fact that pondering these questions further endangers innocent lives, which Wally continues to save. As an unrelated tremor shakes the ground, XX senses the uncertainty in the minds of these alternate heroes, how their actions could mean doom for both Metropolises. Metropoli. You know what I mean. But Serling doubts they can know for sure what the right decision is. Back at the Super Brawl, old Kal again tells Kon to stop, but he goes on fighting as that's what Superman would do. Caught on camera by Jimmy Olsen accompanying Lois Lane, a building drops on them, but their fight continues, to the point Superman shoves him to the ground, demanding to talk things over. He sees Lois and the two catch each other off guard, each feeling a sad awareness of having lost their own versions of each other, but at peace that they live on in some alternate form. But ever the reporter, Lois begins asking questions. Old Kal explains how an unknown enemy is manipulating them, but they're seeking a peaceful conclusion. The exchange is just what you'd expect of either version of the two if they hadn't lost each other. So Kon, the mood killer, lobs a chunk of street at him.
This is how you resolve things peacefully!
The asphalt breaks on Kal, and a sizable piece strikes Lois square on the forehead.
Finally, a good reason to punch a teenager in the face!
As Flash takes her to get medical care, Superman tells the child everyone will be hurt by their fighting. But Kon retorts that they're as clueless as he is, but Red Robin informs them they've got a better shot at finding the mastermind. Coaxed by Double X and assured he won't be killed, and boosting his ego a little bit, he agrees. One planet-moving punch later, nicely done by the way, and Kon is out cold. Both supers a little fearful and confused, but holding out hope this was the right move. Yeah, keep snapping pictures, Olsen. I'm sure he'd like a few framed ones to remember this moment. As Grayson uses his cape as a makeshift pillow, he wonders if he could have displayed that kind of courage in his youth. But for Kal-El, I would have expected nothing less from a hero who deserves to be called Superman. And that was Convergence Superboy. I enjoyed it overall. Nice art, very clever uses of Superboy's tactile telekinesis, though it leaves some questions. It seemed fairly hypocritical of Kal to talk about peaceful resolutions after his team guided Superboy to a deserted area with the express purpose of launching an initial attack. Don't get me wrong, Superboy was indeed overly aggressive in the fight, his lack of foresight causing mistakes, but this started with him being hit with the debilitating gas made from something lethal to him, then physically struck by a seasoned combatant. Who wouldn't fight back in that kind of situation? I get that this is a lesson Superboy needs to learn, that no matter how much you want to prove yourself, there are times you have to leave matters to those who are more capable. It's a lesson DC Comics could stand to learn, but the Kingdom Come trio's actions make that message rather muddled and confusing. The message they're trying to convey gets confused when you attack someone and then expect them to give up because you ask them. It risks becoming one of apathy, where a good, capable man may let evil flourish. A reader familiar with Kingdom Come would know what kind of Superman Kal is, but Kon doesn't. Kal's intentions would have been made clearer if they lured him to the abandoned island and tried talking things out first, expecting him to throw the first punch because he's young and arrogant. It would have worked better to showcase Kon desperate to prove himself if he just called them liars from the outset and acted like these old fogies expected. And since Double X is a telepath that was sensing the other hero's sincerity, he could communicate that to Superboy, helping him realize he's seriously dropped the ball. This is supposed to be a Superboy from just after Superman died, and at that time, even though he was a teenager and no one really took him seriously at first, he was very arrogant and didn't like being called Superboy. He expected to be called Superman, but that particular quirk was not quite delved into here. You just can't genetically engineer good help these days. I'm the Angry Spork, and man, have I got issues.